Welcome to the TOPS 1 training presentation series. Day 2, Banking and Payables. In this series, we will discuss banking and payables. Of course, we'll take you through the bank account setup, accounts payable functionality, we'll review the vendors, entering bills and attaching scanned images. Today's agenda will break down bank accounts, entering vendors, activity, entering bills, making payments, and our final output of reporting. Chapter 1. How to manage bank accounts. Setting up the master bank account in TOPS 1. Simply select from the portfolio menu, Banks. From the bank selection, you can see all created banks, and from the Actions button at the top right-hand corner, we can select to add a bank at this point. All banks appearing on the screen are global and available to all communities. When you have selected from the Actions button to add or edit a bank, you will be presented with the same screen. Basic demographic information, bank ID, bank name and display, address and alternate address. Custom fields can be introduced. Information for the default routing number, phone numbers, fax, email, and more. Once a bank has been added to the TOPS 1 system, the Actions button changes. These changes include editing that bank, adding an account specific to a community, adding a comment, or even adding a task for that bank. The first indication under Actions is to edit the bank. All relative information as was added can be edited at this point. When adding an account screen, we'll select the community. Select the primary community account if the bank is your default operating account for AR and AP transactions. Account name, bank account number, bank routing number, starting check, and lockbox ID if this is applicable, as well as branch information. We can add comments to the master bank, such as contact information or other specifics that are not mentioned. The fourth indication under Actions, under the master bank, is to add a task, which can be assigned to any user, even yourself, in the system, giving a due date, status, and a priority, subject and message specific to the community, which will appear on the community activity page as you log in, if you are responsible under a community list for that particular community. From the left-hand navigation under Portfolio, when banks are selected and the master banks are displayed, selection of one bank will present the activity of that particular bank, the number of accounts and assets, the activity, contact, and bank information. So first select the master bank if you wish to reconcile an account for it. When the master bank has been selected, under the activity you will find the accounts displayed. The community, account name, balance, and actions, and the indication that it would be the primary account for said community. When you select the hyperlinked underlined word Bank Reconciliation, you'll be taken to that screen. When you present the Reconciliation bank account screen, you'll select the statement date, which is the statement end date from the bank statement, entering the bank statement balance, or the ending balance on that statement. The balances are reviewed in the screen below, from the date, the source or batch that it is from, the debit and credit amounts, the check numbers if applicable, the ability to check cleared or to show uncleared only, and the cleared date for it. If you toggle the Show Uncleared Only switch to see all cleared and non-cleared items, remember to select in the lower left-hand corner to check for more indications. When the reconciliation statement is before you, you have the ability, of course, to select the statement date and bank statement balance, seeing the account balance and differences, the ability to add service fees, and add interest income at the time. By selecting the blue plus sign, you can add multiple interest income and specifics to the batch before posting. Once the reconciliation has been posted, under Reports and Standard Reports, General Ledger, Bank Reconciliation Report will give you a history for a given bank account. Chapter 2. How to manage vendors. And navigation, under Accounts Payable, vendors can be selected and viewed in two different ways. As we can see in the graphics here, the top graphic representing the card view, the lower graphic representing the list view that can be toggled. There's also, of course, filtering for alias and name, ascending to descending values. When the vendor is selected, the vendor cards are presented, and we can access vendor work orders currently open, access open payables, call or email the vendor, as we can see from this image, as we would pull up TOPS 1 on a smartphone, for example. When a vendor card is selected, we can see from the KPI, or the colorful blocks horizontally placed along the top of the interface, for balances, accounts payable, and work orders, activity, contact information, the communities they've done work for, vendor information, insurance, and more. We can add vendors manually, upload them with a feature for importation, call or email vendors from the vendor card. Doing so must have a valid current email in the system. All vendors are global, like banks. From the main vendor screen and the Actions button, we can of course see to add a vendor. The addition of a vendor will provide vendor ID and display name, vendor name, address, 1099 participation, federal EIN tax ID number, phone numbers, other demographics, email, even websites. Once the vendor is created, the Actions button will change to allow us to edit that vendor, add a comment, add a task, a work order, a bill, even remove a transaction. Editing the vendor from the Actions menu allows you to edit that vendor ID, display name, vendor name, address, 1099 participation, tax ID, phone, email, websites, and more. Additional vendor actions allow you to add a comment or a task to yourself or others that are users in the TOPS 1 system. Adding a work order directly to the vendor from the vendor action screen. Community or property function can be toggled between service request or work order, creation date, and the allowance of scheduling to automate that process. Adding a bill from the vendor actions presets to vendor name, adds a bill or handwritten check as needed. The details also. Bill distribution at the bottom. Use the hide or remove transaction to remove a transaction from the system, including both sides of the general ledger in which it is linked to, creating a wash, which also cannot be seen or presented against the GL reports. Only the GL audit log can see this. Chapter 3. AP Activity, Accounts Payable Activity Area. On the main navigation on the left-hand side, Accounts Payable can be expanded to show AP Activity. AP Activity Area in the center of the screen, and also navigatable from the Actions button, in which several different actions are available. Vendor Activity Action options, entering bills, importing bills, signatures, entering of handwritten checks, printing checks, voiding checks, and adjustments. Chapter 4. Entering bills, importing and approving them. Entering bills defaults to the current community. Once we've defaulted the community, entered the vendor, the type, and scheduling preferences, we can post or post this and add a new entry as well. When looking to enter a bill, verify you are in the correct community, select the vendor, bill type, handwritten, check, or otherwise. This is also good to record an auto debit transaction. When recording the bill, the details will be first, bill number to add the invoice number, reference, what is the invoice for. Selecting the bank will default to the primary bank of the community chosen. Bill date, effective date, and due date. Notice bill distributions. Entering the bill distribution should be selected as an expense, entering the amount of the invoice, and clicking the plus sign to add expense distribution, should this be for more than one expense account. Finally, the attachment gallery can be used to select files and attach perhaps even scanned images of the bill. Entering bills can be generated globally, posting and adding new to a batch, not specific to a community, once cleared. For recurring bills like utilities, subscriptions, and automated transfers, you can automate them using the scheduling a bill. 3 options available here: this time only for a single invoice, scheduling to accrue and notify but not post so that it can be edited, or to automate and fully post the transaction, notifying you when it is finished. Chapter 5. Making payments, printing checks, manual checks, and voiding checks. Making payments and printing checks for one community or all communities is seamless and quite easy. As we can see from the breadcrumb trail at the top, we can select all communities. Filtering options are presented from due date, amount, post date, and vendor, ascending to descending values. Additional filters are available as well: start date, end date, amount range, check status, vendor, or even item contains a specific reference information. When the AP Make Payments is selected from the left-hand navigation, the Open Items filter is available. The Past Due filter uses the due date to input on entry. The Payments filter will display, once the checks are printed, how many payments are made for that particular community. The Partial Payments KPI bar, on selection, you can pay less than total, leaving the remainder balance owed. The Total KPI displays the total of the checks in the selected view below. The selection of invoices will display that action. Under the actions, it will display the number of selections you've made, the ability to print checks directly from this area. Before printing the checks, you'll be presented with a preview screen, allowing you to edit the communities, checks, amounts, the template, the check stock in which these checks will be printed to, the account in which they will be deducted from, and of course your remaining balance and total checks, cash operating balances of the account selected, will be presented below. You can also add additional items or remove them prior to printing. You can batch print from the AP Activity screen and the Activity list when you select to open the activity to view or print checks. From the Activity screen, each area can be expanded to view the check. Select to print all checks in the community batch. Repeat this for each community. If we're looking to void payments, we can select them, and the Actions button will reflect that action as well, allowing us to void the selected. Adjustments can be made to cancel an invoice or mark it as paid. Accounts payable adjustments can be canceling an open item, marking it as paid, or posting it. When looking to cancel an open item and the selection is made, the description can be provided as to why. If you're looking to mark it as paid, you can select the bank and enter the check number it was paid from. From the Accounts Payable Activity screen, remember, you can customize your checks from the admin and the template library. Reporting for accounts payable. Accounts payable and year-end reporting can be found under the Standard Reporting